So, does anyone care to touch on this further?
Don't let anybody gaslight you. This was not just a stroll through the Capitol. It was violent.
It was, yes, it was absolutely violent, and it was religiously motivated. And
yes.
Welcome back to my channel. I am your host, G.I. Wingnut, also known as Jerry. This video will probably be one of the shorter ones in this introduction to this rapture doctrine thing. And it's because it kind of loops back on itself, and I really don't like circling the drain. But I do have reasons for going ahead and finishing this section C out, because I also need to get into the list of the characters that we're dealing with now in this modern time, and who they were influenced by, and why these particular doctrines matter. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at this. Rapture Bible proof texts refuted. Number one, every Bible verse used by rapture advocates are the same passages that Christians have used to prove the second coming, with will being about, or with all being about the resurrection of all the dead, both wicked and righteous. Translation of the living into spirit beings, which means they have to die. Their physical bodies have to die. The destruction of the earth, that may be how they die. The great judgment, and heaven and hell, all at the same time. You will see in every one of their rapture proof texts that rapture is not actually specified. Instead, it is the good old second coming as taught historically by the church back to the first century, not some new doctrine revealed for the first time to the Plymouth Brethren through John Darby in 1830 AD, or CE, depending upon whether or not which historical timeline or scale that you're looking at. Being a historian and anthropologist, I tend to go with CE. Number two, there are shockingly few actual Bible texts that rapture advocates actually use to attempt to prove rapture is taught in the Bible. Number three, equally shocking is that many of those who teach the rapture believe in continuous revelation. This means that they do not even need any biblical passages to prove their new doctrine. They, as prophets, believe God has revealed it to them as a brand new Christian doctrine that the first century Christians never believed and the apostles never taught. I'm going to interject there. I'm going to drop a few names. Kat Kerr, Robin Bullock, Timothy Dixon, Julie Green. And then there's a whole bunch of other false teachers like Todd White and Greg Locke and Steven Anderson. And I could keep going, but anyway, that's another part of my work. So back to this article. Continues with on number three with, so they will openly admit they have little or nothing in the Bible so they will admit that they have little or nothing in the Bible to support their new rapture theology. Of course, they fail the test of a true prophet to possess the ability to perform miracles, or at least a prophecy or two to come true. Julie Green, I'm talking to you, girl. Anyway, also, number four, see also overview on how rapture and premillennialism contradicts the Bible. The link will be in the description and for both of those things. I'm not going to dive into it. It pretty much is rehashing everything. Number five, and this is the final comparisons here, and this will finish up section C, and then we're going to move on to how this doctrine has inspired individuals into some of the political maneuvers that we're seeing today. So, number five. Here is a complete collective of Bible passages used to prove the rapture. Comment. No pre-tribulation rapture in 1 Thessalonians 4:15 through 17. This is the only proof text that is ever given for any direct support for the rapture. The words for caught up is harpazo in the Greek, and is also used of when Paul was caught up into the third heaven to see visions in 2 Corinthians 12:2. However, this verse simply teaches that all Christians have taught, I think it means taught about the events at the second what all Christians have been taught about the events at the second coming, namely resurrection of all the dead, translation of the living into spirit beings, destruction of the earth, judgment, heaven and hell, all in a twinkling of an eye at the last trump. I think it means, it translates in the scriptures as trumpet, but given that it's February 3rd, 2025, I'm just going to skip right over that because I don't subscribe to conspiracy theories anymore, although I know there are some that are true. But anyway, as a whole, I don't. So the passage is given there. I'm not going to read it. Next up, no rapture in John 5:28. In fact, it teaches the opposite. False teachers of the rapture say that only Christians are raised then after 1,000 years, the wicked are raised. This verse clearly teaches that in the same twinkling of an eye, an hour, not 1,000 years, all the dead will be raised. No rapture in this Daniel 12:2, just that all the dead, both righteous and wicked, will be raised to judgment at the last day. No rapture in 1 Corinthians 15:21 through 28. In fact, it teaches the opposite. It says that the second coming will be the end, not 1,000 years before the end. It says that Christ is reigning now, but will give up his reign at the second coming and hand it over to the Father. Rapture teaches that Jesus is not reigning now, but will begin to reign at the second coming. This is exactly opposite to what the Rapture False teachers believe. And last but not least, no rapture in this. 1 Corinthians 15:51. It teaches that the second coming, at the second coming, the dead will be raised into immortal spirit beings, and the living shall be changed into immortal spirit beings. I'm going to give you a quick preview of a couple of things I'm going to look at, and then I'm going to close out this video. So real quick, just a few headlines, and I'll include the links from Times of Israel. 18 August 2020, Trump says he moved U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem for the evangelicals. I'll expose you to some of those modern evangelicals here in a moment, because he's talking about the charismatic evangelicals. And that's why I'm laying out this stuff. This is why I'm going to be talking about some of these other characters that I'm getting ready to introduce you to, along with a few that I've already mentioned in passing in a few of the previous videos. So, U.S. President on campaign tour of battleground Midwest states says evangelical Christians more excited by that than the Jewish people. That should say a lot when white evangelical Christians in America are more excited about the move of an embassy than the people within that country. So this brings me over here to Mike Johnson. And he's being slammed for being a lapdog, for attacking Bishop Buddy, for asking Trump and Vance to be merciful to transgender people and immigrants. And then, let's see. I'm going to have to edit that. Okay, I think I have it realigned better. Anyway. House Speaker Mike Johnson was once the dean of a Christian law school. that never opened its doors. This is an article coming from the Associated Press, and it is dated October 31st, 2023. Again, I will drop the link. Now, with all that said, I've got some video clips that I want to bring to you from Right Wing Watch, and let's take a look at those. First up, I want to introduce you to this character that's just absolutely, totally down with worshiping a certain Donald J. Trump. And his name, as you can see from that little title there, is Robin Bullock, and he has a church in Warrior, Alabama. Now, I'm just pointing this guy out because he's causing some harm, and I'm hoping that he will change his ways. Because violence in any form is not right. Now, as I get later into this series and I show you who Robin Bullock really is, plain and simple, he's a false prophet. But let's just go ahead and take a look at this real quick.
Prophets predicted that Donald Trump would be president. And then it was stolen, and the elect pointed at the prophets. They predicted he would be president. Then it was stolen, and then the elect pointed their fingers at the prophets. This delusion was so complete, and the darkness was so dark, listen close what I'm going to tell you, that the church and the people could not see it.
That the church and the people could not see it. All right, let me introduce you to another Trump false prophet. We have Miss Kat Kerr here. After Donald Trump established Space Force, this pink-haired false prophet came up with a thing that she called Spirit Force. And so she's Commander Kat Kerr of Spirit Force. This lady, in my opinion, needs some professional help. Let's see what she's got to say.
Are you going to be sending a lot of the hosts to Trump's inauguration? Is there anything you're feeling like that might try to be stopped? Or
I've already sent them. I have sent them. I've sent them on a regular basis. There's 1 million right now that are posted to him. And you know, there's special ops hosts. Special ops are the ones who have flesh on them. I have lined this Pennsylvania Avenue with hosts, thousands upon thousands and thousands of them, lining the very route that he would have to take, the place that he will be standing to take his.
So she also, this Kat Kerr gal, thinks that she can boss God around. In one of her conversations while she was visiting heaven, she was telling God that she was going to do something and don't write it down in the book. Next up, we've got this great guy, and that's sarcasm, Mr. Hank Kunneman. And he works over at Flashpoint Media, which is part of the Ken Copeland Ministries. Ken Copeland is something I grew up under. So let's just take a quick look at what this guy has to say about those who hate this country started the LA wildfires, not taking into consideration that California has been in a drought season. So let's take a look at what this guy's got to say.
This seems very purposeful, and God in his justice is going to expose it. And don't think, guys, those of you that are watching, you have this thing in New Orleans, and all of a sudden, Las Vegas, and now suddenly these fires in California, and we are supposed to stick our head in the sand and think that somebody and those who hate this country somehow are not involved.
Well, that's just a special kind of, Anyway, moving right along, we got this other Trump prophet. I'm going to close out this series of little clips with a very special clip from Shane Vaughn. Anyway, let's listen to this guy as he celebrates the firing of DOJ officials who prosecuted the emperor.
having conniption fits at the Department of Justice today. Why? Chickens have come home to roost. And today, the acting Attorney General, James McHenry, fired the employment of every DOJ official who prosecuted the emperor. The
emperor. I thought America had a president, not an emperor. Let's see, what have I got up next? Let's take a look at this Charlie Kirk clip. Charlie Kirk and Eric Metaxas say Trump's election is one of God's greatest grace in U.S. history. Now, take into consideration that Eric Metaxas wrote a horribly distorted version of the life of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and Charlie Kirk is a, for lack of a better term, a Christian nationalist. He's a very active young guy, if you don't know who he is. And he constantly blurs the line between church and state by hosting Turning Point USA events inside of charismatic evangelical churches. And not long ago, there was one out in, I do believe it was Phoenix, Arizona, where Donald Trump spoke. Maybe I should grab that clip as a final closer. Nah, I'll throw it in before the Shane Vaughn one. But anyway, check this out.
I do believe that we're living through one of God's greatest graces upon the Republic since its founding.
Oh, there's absolutely no doubt. I mean, I'm tracking 100. I've been saying the same thing. We're living through tremendous history this minute.
And I think God gave his grace at its founding. God gave his grace in the Civil War.
Mass deportations in line. I mean, sounds like some 1933 stuff. Anyway. I got one more clip here. Sean Foyt, another one of those great Trump prophet types, says God is using Trump's tariffs to save Canada and Mexico. Meanwhile, if you're not tracking the trade war that Donald Trump has sparked, Washington Post came out within the last couple of days. Today is February 3rd, 2025. That within the last couple of days, that Washington Post came out with an article saying that sparking the trade wars was one of the dumbest things ever. Actually, I'm not going to take the 3 minutes to play this, but let's take a quick look at the beginning of this, because as you can see here, I'm going to turn my camera off for the moment. This video may include disinformation or dehumanizing and discriminating rhetoric. Right Wing Watch exposes bigotry and extremism to disrupt authoritarian political forces and defend democracy. Having grown up trained as a Christian nationalist, I understand what they're doing. So let's go ahead and take a peek here and see what's going on. I'll bring you that Trump speech clip from that church moment, and then we'll roll on out of here.
How should Canadians and Mexicans respond? I get asked this a lot. If you're a believer out there in Canada and Mexico, you kind of love America, but you're kind of mad. You don't know what to do. This is my advice to you. I would just humbly submit this to you. I believe that God is using Trump to upset the apple cart. I believe God is using him to bring a reckoning to your nation. I believe God is using him and this administration to expose the evils that are happening in your country. I believe.
So what he's saying is he believes that these unloving behaviors and these othering tactics are the tools of God. I'm sorry, buddy. I don't want to be a part of that. Anyway, let me go grab those other two clips real quick, and we'll get out of here. Let me get to my closing thoughts. Lined up for you, and Here we go.
If you want to save America, get your friends, get your family, get everyone you know, and vote. Vote early, vote absentee, vote on election day. I don't care how, but you have to get out and vote. And again, Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed, it'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote.
Now, that's not the clip of him speaking at the church or that I was thinking about, and I opted against it. But add that to what Mr. Shane Vaughn says.
We would never be this defensive of Donald Trump if you would not have forced us into this cult mentality. Yeah, we would now fight for Donald Trump. Why? We believe in justice. And when we see a man that God's put his hand on being attacked night and day, you are forcing us to look like a cult. We're patient and steadfast in our support of a single man. We are cult followers. Yes, we follow a man. Yes, we do. We drank the Kool-Aid and it's orange.
Actually, that reminds me of one more clip I got to add. Hang on. All right. One last clip. This is Daniela Masternick of the Knitting Cult Lady. And when they're making jokes about being a cult, it's so creepy. She grew up in the Children of God cult. So let's just take a listen to what she has to say. And then I've got to get out of here.
It's amazing how much this comes up. But y'all, when a group is joking about being a cult, but like a good cult, or yeah, that leader, I mean, we're all so devoted to him. It's almost like a cult, but I mean, we're a good cult, you know? Well, if this is brainwashing, then some brains just need to be washed. Like, yikes on bikes. I'm Danielle, a scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership. And you know who talks a lot about not being a cult? Cults. In my book, there's this moment where I have like my crack in the brainwashing and I'm like, oh, I grew up in a cult. And my literal next thought was like, that's why we spent so much time talking about not being a cult. And like, I can't think of a single example of just like a good group that just sits around and comes up with reasons why they're not a cult. Anywhere you find the jokes or the comparisons to cults, I promise you there's darker stuff there. Why is that? Because we don't compare non-coercive groups or non-coercive leaderships to cults. And even though there are so many stereotypes, I think we all know inherently that when we say cult, we are talking about when someone comes under the complete coercive control of a group. And you can't hack people's motivations and personality for good. Good and bad are not scientific terms. It's all contextually decided. So, back to the thing. If you're joking about being a cult, maybe look into that a little more. And CrossFit is certainly a big offender in this area. Check out Uncultured if you would like autographed copies here.
So, just another ex-cult member that I've paid attention to that helped me untangle a lot of things. I'll talk at another point in time about the Children of God and David Berg and how he's linked to the William Branham Latter Rain movement. But this is getting long enough, and I've got things to attend to because, well, while in a conversation recently, I was told that it's not likely that the charismatic evangelicals have the influence that I feel like that they have. in American politics. So that's what we're going to be diving into. First off, I wanted to lay the foundation of the fear doctrine that is known as the rapture. And I'm going to be continuing with how fear is utilized by various individuals and groups to maintain control of individuals, which is how we get MAGA, eschatology, and accelerationism. I hope you take care of each other. Mental health matters. Take care of yourself. It's not a selfish thing. Stay hydrated. It's important. Until the next video.